A 16-year-old black teenager had been working night shifts to support his little sister while chasing his dream of playing basketball. He finally made it to the state championship game. With the final score in reach, he saw a player from the opposing team collapse on the court. Instead of scoring, he ran to save him, costing his team the game. The crowd mocked him, saying he didn't deserve to be there. What he didn't know was that the boy he saved was the son of a state senator. 3 days later, his life changed forever. The chain-link fence rattled in the wind as dusk settled over East Baltimore. Streetlights flickered uncertainly, casting broken halos of orange over cracked sidewalks and the crooked row homes that leaned into each other like tired old men. A basketball thudded against pavement, echoing sharp and lonely in the open air, each bounce steady, like a heartbeat refusing to stop. Jalen Carter stood at the edge of the old park court, 1 foot inside the three-point line, 1 foot in yesterday's world. 16 years old, black, too tall for his hoodie, too quiet for the world he lived in. His breath formed a faint mist as the late autumn air nipped at his skin. He held the ball in both hands, the one with the faded Wilson logo and peeling leather seams, the one his mama gave him on his 10th birthday, 2 weeks before the accident that took her. He never let that ball go. The court lights hadn't worked in months. The backboard was cracked and the net hung like a tired spiderweb, one side completely torn off. Still, this was his sanctuary, his chapel. Here, between crooked painted lines and rusted fences, Jalen became someone else, quicker, smarter, stronger. And tonight, like every other night after work, he practiced in the dark because the world gave him no other time. From the second-story window of their apartment across the street, a curtain moved. His grandmother, Miss Hattie, watched like she always did, arms crossed tight across her chest. Behind her, little Naomi, age 7, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a book she couldn't quite finish because she kept waiting for the sound of Jalen coming home. Miss Hattie's knees ached too much to come down. She had worked half her life as a hospital custodian until the arthritis bent her fingers and twisted her walk. Now she managed what she could, cleaning, cooking, praying, but she knew the house leaned on Jalen. And it wasn't fair, she knew that too. Down on the court, Jalen planted his feet and faked left. One quick dribble, a crossover, then up, his jump shot clean and smooth. The ball arced high, slicing through the shadows, then dropped through the rim with a satisfying whoop. No cheers, no scoreboard. Just the cold air and the rhythm of one boy trying to outrun the world. He wiped his forehead with the back of his sleeve, glancing up at their apartment window. Naomi had the light on in her room. Jalen smiled faintly, just for a second. He thought about going inside. He still had homework. He hadn't eaten. He'd promised Naomi he'd braid her hair before bed. But his legs didn't move. Not yet. This was the only time in the day that felt like his. Jalen's shift at the gas station ended at 7:45 sharp. He jogged the 4 blocks back home, backpack slapping against his spine, swapped his work boots for scuffed-up Nikes and headed straight for the court. No dinner, no break, not even a word to his grandmother. She didn't ask anymore. She knew because she'd seen the way he watched basketball on the busted old TV, eyes locked in like he was studying blueprints to escape. She'd heard the way he whispered plays under his breath, the way he cut through the kitchen like a fast break, the way he dribbled an invisible ball down the hallway without even noticing. Jalen didn't have a coach, didn't have a team, he barely had time, but somehow, in the way he moved, there was a logic to it, like a language his body already understood. Quick pivot, fast read, smooth release. It wasn't luck, it wasn't noise, it was talent, raw, unshaped, and hungry. And on that cold November evening, someone else finally saw it. A black sedan had pulled up alongside the court, headlights off, windows rolled down. Inside sat Coach Sam Whitaker, head basketball coach at Lincoln Heights High School, retired college assistant, once a regional scout, now content teaching gym class and running drills for kids who didn't care. But tonight, he leaned forward in the driver's seat, watching Jalen move like the game was stitched into his DNA. Coach Sam didn't speak, didn't beep. He watched one more jump shot, clean, another. Then a drive to the rim, spin move, soft layup off the glass, smooth, efficient, smart. Jalen finally noticed the car and stopped, one hand still palming the ball. He squinted through the dark, shoulders tense. Coach Sam stepped out slowly, hands up in peace. "I'm not here to sell you anything," he said calmly. "Name's Coach Whitaker, Lincoln Heights." Jalen nodded but said nothing. The court felt different now. Exposed, the shadows weren't as friendly. "I saw the whole thing," Coach Sam continued. "You've got court vision, timing, you play like you've been coached before." "I haven't," Jalen replied, voice low, guarded. The coach smiled at that, small and respectful. "Then I think we ought to fix that." Jalen looked at him, one eyebrow raised. He didn't move, didn't hand over the ball. "You ever think about trying out?" Coach Sam asked, taking a cautious step closer. "We got open gym every Saturday, no pressure, no promises, just ball." Jalen hesitated. He thought about Naomi asleep on the couch. He thought about the gas station. About the weight he carried every single day that no one else could see. Then his fingers gripped the ball tighter. He looked at the hoop, at the torn net, then back at Coach Sam. "Maybe," he said. "I'll think about it." Coach Sam nodded once. That was enough. He turned back to his car, the cold settling in deeper now. Before he drove off, he called out, "Next Saturday, 9 a.m. Don't need gear. Just bring your game." Jalen stood there long after the car disappeared. The park was silent again. He looked down at the worn-out ball in his hands. The seams were frayed, the grip was gone. But in that moment, it felt heavier than ever. Like a key, or a question. Maybe it wasn't just about escaping. Maybe it was about choosing where to go. He took one last shot, swish, then turned and walked home, the echo of the bounce fading behind him. The night swallowed the court whole, but something had shifted. Tomorrow might be different. The sound of the ball hitting pavement came steady and sharp at 10:06 p.m. Bouncing off brick walls and broken glass scattered near the edge of the cracked court. The streetlight above Jalen Carter blinked with a lazy hum, casting a cone of pale yellow across the black top. Jalen's shadow danced with each pivot, stretching and twisting like the burden he carried on his back every day. He moved with silent determination, sweat glistening on his forehead, shirt clinging to his back. Every move had intent. Every step was a quiet answer to the world that kept asking him, "What makes you think you belong?" Most boys his age were already home by now, some playing video games, some texting friends, others just living lives that didn't come with hunger as background noise. But Jalen was here, alone under the indifferent sky, doing drills he remembered from YouTube videos and fragments of old games he watched in passing through pawn shop windows. He wasn't supposed to have made it this far, and still here he was. Hours earlier, he'd clocked out of his shift at the gas station, nodding goodbye to Mr. Lenny, the night manager who pretended not to notice Jalen slipping leftover sandwiches into his backpack. He jogged the 6 blocks home, unlocked the apartment door quietly so as not to wake his grandmother, and found Naomi half asleep on the couch, book open on her chest. He kissed her forehead, tucked a blanket around her, and left again without a word. His legs ached, but he welcomed the burn. Pain reminded him he was still moving, still chasing something. Across town, in a different kind of world, the hardwood courts of Washington West gleamed under LED lighting and polished trophies. There, a boy named Bradley Simmons, known to his teammates as B-Rock, practiced in custom sneakers that cost more than Jalen's entire wardrobe. Bradley's jump shot was smooth, and his confidence even smoother. Son of a senator, star player since middle school, B-Rock had grown up with everything Jalen never had: private trainers, travel teams, nutrition plans, highlight reels with slow-motion edits. He didn't just play the game, he assumed it belonged to him. And he knew every name that appeared on the upcoming bracket for the Maryland State Youth Classic. Jalen Carter's was one of them. A name he hadn't seen before. A name that didn't come from any camp, club, or sponsored tournament. A name that didn't belong. Back on the east side, Jalen wiped sweat from his brow and reset his stance at the top of the key. He breathed through his nose, focused his eyes, and launched a shot that hit nothing but net, or what was left of it. A voice cut through the stillness. "You always this quiet when you play, or just ignoring me?" Jalen turned sharply, ball tucked under his arm. Standing near the chain-link fence was Tiana Brooks, arms crossed, her long braids catching the breeze. She wore an oversized hoodie and carried a beat-up tote bag with school books sticking out. She stepped onto the court, the soles of her sneakers scraping softly against concrete. "I said hey," she repeated, softer now. Jalen cracked a smile. I wasn't ignoring you, just in it. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. You forgot to answer my text. Naomi was asking for you. Jalen looked down. I know. I was running late. Tiana dropped her bag near the sideline and walked toward him. You can't do everything, Jay. I don't have a choice, he said, almost too fast. They stood in silence for a moment, the tension settling between them like fog. Then she picked up the ball and bounced it toward him. You still got math homework, genius. And Coach Sam wants you to run film with him tomorrow before class. Jalen caught the ball with one hand and spun it once on his fingertip before letting it fall into his other palm. He's serious about putting me on the tournament roster. He already turned in the paperwork. You're on the official team sheet, starting 5. She paused. You didn't know. Jalen blinked. He hadn't dared to believe it would happen. He wasn't sure if he should feel excited or terrified. That's real, he asked. Tiana nodded. It's real. Maryland State Youth Classic. You versus the best in the state, and B-Rock's gonna be there too. He let out a long breath. Great. Just what I need, some spoiled rich kid, with a highlight reel and a personal trainer. He's more than that, Tiana warned. He's good, mean but smart, got a killer fadeaway and a dirty mouth to match. But coach says you've got something he doesn't. Jalen raised an eyebrow. Like what? Expired bus fare. She gave him a small shove. Like grit, like the ability to read a play before it happens. Coach Sam says you see the game like you've been playing it in your sleep for years. Jalen turned and looked at the basket again. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, voice low, almost whispering, he said, I don't want to just show up. I want to win. Not for a medal, just to prove something. To who? He looked at her. His voice cracked a little. To myself. She didn't say anything, but he saw it in her eyes. She understood. Later that night, Coach Sam sat in his apartment, flipping through old notebooks filled with sketches of plays and rosters from seasons long past. He stopped at one page, a list titled Players to Watch, and underlined a name he'd scribbled just 2 days ago, Jalen Carter. He shook his head and smiled, muttering to himself, damn kid don't even know how good he is yet. And across the city, in a penthouse bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows, B-Rock watched game film of Lincoln Heights on a 60-inch screen. He paused the video at a frame of Jalen driving through 3 defenders and scoring with a spin move. He leaned forward, narrowed his eyes. Who the hell is this kid? He muttered. He picked up his phone and texted his assistant coach. Need more tape on Carter, ASAP. Jalen, meanwhile, was walking back home under the still flickering street lamp, the ball wedged under one arm, backpack slung over his shoulder. He knew the days ahead would be harder. School, work, training, homework, more work. His world hadn't gotten easier just because someone said his name on a roster. But the ball felt lighter in his hands. The weight was still there, sure, but now, it had direction, and maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his life, he wasn't just playing for survival. He was playing for something bigger. The court faded behind him, the cold creeping in through his sleeves, but his feet never stopped. He kept walking, one step at a time. The gym at Morgan Field Arena felt electric, buzzing with the kind of charged energy that made your chest tighten before the game even started. The air was heavy with sweat, cheap nacho cheese, and 1,000 conversations layering over one another like radio static. The bleachers groaned under the weight of students, parents, scouts, and alumni packed elbow to elbow. Phones were up, cameras were rolling. The words Maryland State Youth Classic, semifinals flashed on the overhead scoreboard in red and gold. On the east side of the court, Lincoln Heights huddled close, shoulders bumping, voices low, eyes narrowed. Jalen Carter stood near the edge, his back straight, hands on his knees. His heart was thudding so loud it nearly drowned out the pep band. He looked calm from a distance, but inside, he was counting everything. His breath, the score, the seconds left, the faces in the crowd. He had never played in front of this many people in his life, never played under lights this bright. Across the court, Washington West stood like a wall, bigger, taller, more polished, their jerseys crisp, movements calculated. At the center of it all was Bradley Simmons, B-Rock number 21, team captain, 5-star prospect, and the face of every sports flyer in the state. He hadn't looked Jalen's way once during warm-ups, not even when they stood 3 feet apart at center court for tip-off. But Jalen had studied him, every pivot, every hesitation dribble, every glare at the ref, and now, late in the fourth quarter, he was starting to notice something else. B-Rock was fading. It started with his shoulders, they didn't square the same on defense. Then his legs, his stance lost its bounce, and his breath, Jalen could hear it even from across the paint. The deep rasping inhale through clenched teeth. His skin, dark and smooth earlier, had turned pale around the lips. His hands dropped to his knees more often than they should have. The crowd didn't see it, his teammates didn't see it, but Jalen did. The game was tied, 58-58. One timeout left, both benches out of substitutions. Every player on the floor was playing through fatigue, bruises and pressure thick enough to choke on. Coach Sam paced like a caged dog near the sideline, fists clenched behind his back, jaw locked. He looked over at Jalen and gave him the signal, switch to man defense. Jalen nodded and moved up top. Washington West brought the ball in. Jalen's feet moved without thinking. Every drill, every step under that flickering streetlight came flooding back. He mirrored his man like a shadow. B-Rock caught the ball near the wing, tried to shake free with a crossover. His knees buckled slightly. Only slightly, but enough. Jalen reached, poked the ball loose. In a blur, Jalen snatched it and took off. His sneakers pounded the court like war drums. The crowd exploded. The announcer's voice cracked in real time, calling the breakaway live on statewide television. Jalen could already see the path. A clear lane, one defender trailing behind. He could end this. With under 25 seconds on the clock, he could lift his team to the state finals with a single soaring layup. He surged forward, chest heaving, ball cradled in one hand. The basket rose before him like a promise. He leapt, but in that split second, just as his feet left the hardwood, something caught the corner of his eye. A body falling, not stumbling, not diving, falling. Jalen twisted in the air and landed hard on his heels, turning just in time to see B-Rock collapse backward. The gym, which had been deafening a moment ago, seemed to exhale into silence. Bradley Simmons hit the floor with a dull, unnatural thud. His arm twitched once. His legs didn't move. His eyes were open but unfocused. His mouth parted slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Jalen froze, ball still in hand. The ref hadn't blown the whistle. The clock kept ticking. From the bench, Coach Sam yelled something, but Jalen didn't hear the words. None of it mattered. He dropped the ball. He ran. People shouted, some confused, some furious, some already realizing what was happening. Jalen reached B-Rock in 3 long strides and dropped to his knees beside him. The boy's chest was rising too fast, like a car engine overheating. His lips were dry, color draining fast. Jalen looked at his face, then at his chest, then at his mouth. Bradley, he shouted, shaking him gently. Can you hear me? No response. Jalen remembered what the instructor said that summer at the community center. Don't panic. Check the airway. Check the pulse. Keep him breathing. Jalen tilted B-Rock's chin up slightly, checking for obstruction. Nothing obvious. His pulse was there, but fast, scattered, like a skipping record. Jalen leaned down, his ear close to Bradley's mouth. Shallow, erratic. Somebody call the medic, he yelled, turning toward the sideline. Now, the arena erupted in chaos. Referees blew their whistles, coaches stormed the court. Spectators climbed over each other for a better view. Lincoln Heights players looked confused, then stunned, then scared. The scoreboard clock stopped at 13.2 seconds. Coach Sam sprinted over, his expression unreadable. The athletic trainer knelt beside Jalen, began taking vitals. Someone brought a water bottle. Another person cleared space. Jalen didn't move. He stayed on his knees, eyes locked on B-Rock, sweat dripping from his brow like rain. The trainer looked up. If you didn't get to him that fast, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Jalen slowly stood. The gym was a storm. Now shouts, whistles, echoes, rumors. He turned and saw the ball lying forgotten under the rim. The shot he never took. Moments later, an announcement came through the overhead system. Due to unsportsmanlike interruption of play and violation of endgame conduct, Lincoln Heights forfeits the game. Final score, Washington West 60, Lincoln Heights 58. Jalen didn't react. He heard his name whispered from the stands. He saw fingers pointing, felt the heat of eyes on his back, some wide with disbelief, others narrow with disgust. But none of that mattered, because one boy was still breathing. And Jalen knew, in the marrow of his bones, that he had made the only choice that would ever let him sleep at night. The morning after the game, the air at Lincoln Heights High School felt thinner, like the whole building was holding its breath. Jalen walked down the main hallway with his backpack slung low on one shoulder and his hood halfway up. Every step echoed louder than it should have, bouncing off the cold linoleum tiles and faded trophy cases that lined the walls. Eyes followed him from locker corners, whispered voices paused just long enough for him to pass before picking back up in hushed bursts behind him. He kept walking, posters from the tournament still hung on the walls, bright red and blue, with state semis printed in bold. Jalen's face had been on one of them once, just above the words Rising Star. Someone had drawn a question mark over it in black Sharpie. He pushed open the door to the locker room and found it empty. His teammates had already come and gone. No one had messaged him that morning. No group chat updates, no good game bro. Nothing, just silence thick as cement. He sat down on the wooden bench, letting his bag slide off his shoulder with a dull thud. The echoes of the gym 2 nights ago still rang in his head, the screech of sneakers, the roar of the crowd, and the sound of the ball hitting the floor after he dropped it. Not the rim, not the net, just the floor. He'd watched the clip that morning before school. It was already all over social media. 2 angles, one from the bleachers, one from the local news. Jalen breaking away, the crowd on its feet, the basket wide open. Then he stopped. People had paused the video at that exact moment. Dozens of comments lined the thread. He choked. Simple as that. Playing the hero in the biggest game of your life, huh? Win and you're a legend. Lose and you're just a joke. Jalen had turned off his phone after that. Outside the locker room, Coach Sam leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight over his chest. He had been quiet since the forfeit. Not disappointed, not angry, just quiet. And that silence cut sharper than anything. Jalen stepped out, hands in his pockets, unsure of what he was even looking for. Coach Sam looked at him, eyes tired but steady. "You sleep?" he asked. Jalen shrugged. The coach nodded slowly and looked out the window near the stairwell. Rain tapped against the glass like it had something to say. He didn't speak again for a moment. Then, without turning, he said, "You didn't win the game." Jalen lowered his head. "I know. But you won my respect," Coach Sam finished, "and if I had to do it all over again, I'd still bet on you." Jalen nodded once, a lump rising in his throat too big to swallow. He didn't need more words than that. Sam never wasted them. 2 days passed like fog, dense and slow. Jalen kept to himself. His grandmother asked why people were calling the house and why the neighbors were talking in front yards. Naomi didn't understand why her big brother looked so sad, so she left little drawings of him holding a basketball on the table every night. By the afternoon of the second day, Jalen was back in the school gym, alone again, just tossing the ball softly off the backboard and catching it. 1-2 steps, catch, turn, toss. His body moved, but his mind stayed quiet. That's when the front doors to the gym creaked open. He turned and saw Principal Jennings step inside, clearing her throat gently. "Jalen, someone's here to see you." Jalen wiped his hands on his shorts and followed her out into the hall, where students had gathered along the railings of the upper floor, peering over like something big was happening. At the far end of the hallway, flanked by 2 quiet assistants in charcoal suits, stood a tall man in a pressed navy coat with silver cufflinks that caught the hallway light. Jalen froze. It was Rockwell Simmons, state senator, CEO and father of Bradley Simmons. Mr. Simmons stepped forward with the calm control of someone used to being listened to, but there was no arrogance in his face. Just gravity. He stopped a few feet in front of Jalen, met his eyes, and extended a hand. Jalen didn't move at first, then slowly, he reached out and shook it. "Mr. Simmons spoke, his voice steady, carrying through the hushed hallway like a sermon. "My son is alive today because you acted when no one else did," he said. "Doctors told me that another minute, Just one more minute, might have been too late, and you saw it. You ran. You chose a person over points, and because of that, I still have a son. Jalen felt heat rising in his chest, not from pride, but something heavier. He hadn't done it for a speech, he hadn't even thought. He just did what felt right. Simmons continued, turning slightly to address the crowd that had gathered. We teach young men that winning is everything, that trophies define character. But this young man reminded all of us that doing what's right, especially when it costs you something, is what truly defines greatness. The hallway was still, even the whisperers were quiet now. Mr. Simmons turned back to Jalen and placed a folded document in his hand. This is a full athletic scholarship to Elon Rise Sports Academy, he said. You'll train at one of the best programs in the region, with every resource we have. On top of that, your little sister's tuition will be covered through our youth education grant. And your grandmother, if she's willing, can work part-time in our administrative office. Flexible hours. Good pay. Jalen stood frozen, staring at the paper. He didn't know what to say, he wasn't sure he could even speak. Mr. Simmons smiled faintly. There's one more thing, he added. Coach Sam Whitaker, he raised a man of character here. That kind of vision deserves a place on our coaching team. We'd like him to join the Elon Rise training program as assistant head coach. Coach Sam blinked once. It was the first time in years anyone had offered him more than a whistle and a folding chair. Jalen finally found his voice. I didn't do it for this, he said, quiet but firm. I know, Mr. Simmons replied. That's exactly why you deserve it. Somewhere behind them, someone clapped, then another, and another, until the whole hall pulsed with the rhythm of recognition, not the loud kind, not viral, not televised, just real. Jalen stood there in the middle of it all, holding a future he never asked for, granted not because he was the fastest or the strongest, but because when it mattered most, he didn't run toward the basket. He ran toward a fallen player, and in that choice, everything had changed. The first time Jalen walked through the doors of Elon Rise Sports Academy, he felt like a stranger in someone else's story. The floors gleamed like wet glass, the walls were lined with framed jerseys and press clippings, and the gym echoed with the sounds of polished shoes and perfect timing. Every player there had come up through the ranks, AUU, travel leagues, private coaching, highlight reels on YouTube, since they were 12. Jalen came with nothing but a bruised pair of Nikes, a quiet game, honed under a broken streetlight, and a story no one here had seen. But he didn't walk in small, he walked in steady, because by now, he understood that silence wasn't the absence of confidence, it was its sharpest form. He trained harder than anyone, he listened more than he spoke. He showed up early, stayed late, asked questions the others didn't think to ask. Coach Sam, now in his crisp Elon Rise polo, never had to push. He just stood back and watched as the kid from East Baltimore earned every inch of his new world. Jalen still called home every night. Naomi would put her pencil down and run to the phone the moment it rang, her voice breathless with updates about school, about their grandmother's cooking, about the cat she secretly named Baller. Miss Hattie always got on the line next, asking if he was eating right, if his socks had holes, if the coaches treated him fair. He always said yes, even when the food tasted like paper and the workouts made him feel like he had concrete in his legs. And in his dorm room, on the top shelf of a small wooden cabinet, behind the Elon Rise branded game ball he'd been issued, sat something older, faded, priceless, the basketball his mother had given him. Its leather was worn to a dull brown, the seams frayed and split in places, the W in Wilson barely visible. But he had cleaned it with a toothbrush and placed it on a folded towel like something sacred, because it was. That ball had carried him through every long night and every invisible hour. It wasn't just rubber and air, it was memory and reminder. One afternoon, months after his arrival at Elon Rise, Jalen took a train back home. It wasn't a holiday, no one expected him. He just felt something tugging at his chest like gravity in reverse. He stepped off the train in East Baltimore with a hoodie pulled low and a backpack slung across one shoulder. The streets hadn't changed much. The cracks were still in the sidewalk. The corner store still had bars on the windows. The court, though, it was still there. It looked exactly the way he left it. The chain-link fence still rattled in the breeze, one corner duct-taped to keep it from sagging. The backboard was even more faded now, its white square almost invisible. The rim leaned slightly left, same as before, and the net was nothing more than a few tired strands clinging to memory. But someone was on the court. A small boy, maybe 10, maybe younger, was trying to dribble a ball that looked more like a balloon than anything fit for play. It sagged in the middle, squeaked when it hit the ground, and wobbled every time the boy tried to shoot. He was skinny, elbows sharp, clothes a size too big, shoes 2 sizes too small. Jalen stood by the fence and watched. The boy didn't notice him at first. He was too focused, biting his lip, stepping into a jump shot that missed everything by a full foot. The ball bounced toward the edge of the court, and Jalen stepped forward, caught it with one hand, and spun it once like it weighed nothing. The boy turned, startled. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in the kind of guarded curiosity only city kids knew how to wear. Jalen walked toward him slowly and crouched down so they were eye level. Then he unzipped his backpack, reached in, and pulled out a ball, not the one from his mother, that stayed in its place. This one was newer. The Elan Rise insignia gleamed just below the grain, still fresh from a regional game he had played a week earlier. He held it out. "Here," he said, voice gentle, "take it." The boy blinked. "For real?" Jalen nodded. "For real, but there's one rule. Don't let the ball decide who you are. You decide where it goes." The boy took it with both hands, like he was holding something alive. His fingers moved over the texture, eyes wide like he'd never touched anything so solid. Jalen stepped back, folded his arms, and watched. The boy lined up again, set his feet, bounced once, shot. The ball arced through the air like it had been waiting its whole life to fly, and missed, bouncing off the rim and clattering onto the pavement. The boy dropped his shoulders, but before he could look too defeated, Jalen walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder, and smiled. "Not there yet," he said, "but you're on the right court." And in that moment, everything came full circle, not in applause or headlines, not in medals or contracts, but in a quiet exchange between two people who didn't need to say what they understood. That sometimes, the best shot is the one you give someone else.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.